I dropped manure from the sky with a helicopter, and I ruined their little perfect wedding. Now, before you judge, let me tell you how we got here. I'm a farmer, born and raised in dirt, sweat, and seasons. This land has been in my family since before the cookie cutter houses and desperate HOA boards sprouted up like weeds. Unfortunately, my farm sits close enough to them that their drama often leaks over the fence. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top notch HOA drama. It all kicked off on a Monday. I had just returned from the feed store, truck bed loaded down with supplies, when I spotted her, Karen, the self proclaimed queen of the HOA. She stood at my gate with her arms crossed like she owned the place. I slowed, rolled down the window, and asked what she wanted. Without missing a beat, she told me they needed my farm for her daughter's wedding. Community oneness, she called it, waving her hands like I was supposed to melt at the phrase. The kicker? I'm not even part of their HOA. She was sharp-tongued, a little too entitled, and a whole lot rude. I told her I'd think about it, mostly because I didn't feel like watching her have a meltdown right there in the dust. She seemed satisfied enough and strutted off with her nose in the air. That night, I mulled it over while sharpening tools in the barn. My gut told me one thing: nothing good comes from mixing with HOAs. They devour peace of mind faster than locusts devour a cornfield. I decided to decline. The very next day, I found Karen near my driveway again. I told her I wasn't interested. Her lips curled, her voice snapped like a whip. What do you mean? We've already planned it. We're holding the wedding here, whether you like it or not. I swear, the smugness in her tone made my fists clench. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just going to be a refusal. It was going to be war. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments where you're watching this story from. They must have thought I was just another farmer, some pushover who'd smile, nod, and hand over his land whenever the HOA barked. Karen made it clear the board had already decided, as if her little council of gossip queens and wannabe dictators had any authority over my soil. Her words dripped with arrogance. Nothing you do can change this. We'll use your field. I kept a straight face, but inside I laughed. These people had no clue who they were messing with. I wasn't about to roll over like the rest of the neighborhood who trembled at Karen's clipboard and hollow threats. If she wanted to play dirty, I had barns full of the stuff. Literally. Over the next week, I tried warnings. I posted signs in bold red: private property. Trespassers will regret it. I mounted cameras on fence posts. I even confronted her face to face again, telling her flat out she was walking into trouble. But Karen wasn't wired to listen. She smirked, tilted her head, and tossed out a line that still echoes in my ears. You farmers never understand progress. Progress? She called hijacking my farm for a vanity wedding progress. That was the exact second I stopped trying to convince her and started planning payback. See, I already had my schedule lined up for fertilizing the field. A helicopter crew on standby, tanks filled with fresh manure ready to spread over acres of soil. All I had to do was nudge the calendar, move it forward a few days, align it perfectly with Karen's fantasy invasion. I pictured her guests arriving in pressed suits and gowns, the tent glittering, the tables set with crystal and flowers, and then the sky opening up with something they'd never forget. A bitter lesson dripping down on every smug smile. It was almost poetic. They thought they were marching into victory, but really they were walking into the storm I'd prepared. And just like that, I stopped worrying about what if and started focusing on timing. My farm, my rules, my sky. If they wanted to play wedding crashers, then I was about to crash the wedding in a way no one would ever erase from memory. I vanished from the scene on purpose. My absence was bait, a silent invitation for Karen to march in and claim my land like a trophy. And sure enough, they came. The wedding convoy rolled up like royalty, cars shining, horns blaring, and smug faces pressed against tinted glass. Karen strutted in heels across my soil like she'd paved it herself. She barked orders at decorators while guests sipped champagne, laughing under white tents they had no right to raise. From my vantage point, I saw everything. Rows of chairs lined neatly, a giant arch of roses, a cake so tall it looked like it needed scaffolding. The air buzzed with violin strings and shallow compliments. Karen smirked with a glass of wine, waving at her guests as if she was the queen of farmland she didn't own. My cameras caught every second. Then came the roar of blades. heads tilted skyward as the helicopter swept into view, a dark silhouette against the sun. At first, they clapped, thinking it was some grand wedding surprise. Phones went up, filming, cheers bouncing off the tents. They had no idea. The first spray was light, a teaser across the far rows. A few guests sniffed the air, frowning. Karen waved it off with a laugh, insisting it was farm smell. But then, with one signal to the pilot, the tank released its fury. Thick streams of manure poured from the sky, splattering dresses, coating tuxedos, drenching satin and silk in a torrent of filth. Screams erupted. The orchestra dropped their instruments and bolted. The bride shrieked, holding what was once a glowing gown now soaked in brown sludge. The groom cursed, slipping face first into the muck. Karen's shrill voice cracked as she flailed, covered from head to toe, pearls and hair glued by stink. Tables collapsed, champagne turned to mud soup, the cake toppled in a brown wave. Guests stampeded, heels snapping, kids crying, people slipping like clowns in a comedy act. From the cockpit, I grinned as chaos spread below me like wildfire. Karen thought she had stolen control. But the sky was mine, the land was mine, and that day, I reminded everyone exactly whose farm it was. When the helicopter touched down a mile from my property, I was already smiling. I wiped manure mist from my jacket and started walking back toward the mess. By the time I reached the gate, the so-called wedding of the year had collapsed into something closer to a crime scene. Guests scrambled to their cars in dripping designer clothes, mascara running, tuxedos ruined. The bride sat sobbing on a folding chair, dress stained, bouquet abandoned in a puddle. And right in the middle of it all stood Karen, shaking with fury and smelling like a landfill on a hot day. She stormed at me the moment she saw me. You ruined everything. My daughter's future, our family reputation. Do you know who I am? Her arms flailed, spraying drops of manure with each gesture. I will destroy you in court, farmer boy. This is war. Her shriek echoed over the ruined field. I let her rant. When she finally ran out of air, I calmly answered, Karen, you broke onto my property after I told you no. I had my field treatment scheduled. You just happened to be trespassing under the wrong sky. The guests who lingered gawked in silence, some even chuckling through their misery. True to her word, Karen filed charges the very next day. But court was my home turf, just as much as the farm. My lawyer came armed with receipts, helicopter contracts, and time-stamped schedules showing the manure drop had been planned weeks before. On top of that, my security cameras provided crystal clear footage of Karen and her board ignoring the signs, laughing while they set up tents. The judge barely let her finish her rant before slamming down the gavel. Case dismissed. Not only dismissed, Karen was fined for trespassing, ordered to pay damages for cleanup, and scolded for her arrogance. The courtroom chuckled as she sat there, dripping shame without manure this time. Words spread like wildfire. Videos of the wedding disaster made rounds, and Karen's empire of fear collapsed overnight. She avoided my gate from then on, never daring to challenge me again. My farm stayed mine, and her pride stayed buried deep in the muck where it belonged. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.